Welcome back from that first discussion. And of course, we are going into the second discussion immediately. It is still Global Morning on Global Television, reaching you live and direct from the nation's capital, Abuja, Nigeria. Of course, we looked at the first discussion, very intensive discussion, looking at how hot the polity is in Rivers State and the statement that has come from the former Rivers State governor, now the Minister of FCT, saying that Fubara remained his political son, that the people he's fighting, and of course, he said they are the ones instigating Fubara, the suspended governor of Rivers State. But then that's been done and dusted. Let's look at the education sector. How is the education sector in Nigeria right now? Just recently, we heard of what happened to students that took the UTME exam. And of course, the reaction, everything that happened from there, that's not just it. Where did this thing started from? How is the education sector in Nigeria? Who is monitoring the process? Remember, in case you don't know, one of the amenities that Nigerians need is a part of the things that Nigerians need. Just education, just give us education. All right, it's one of the things that every government do for its citizen. But in Nigeria, how has it been? We'll be looking at all of that. We'll do an assessment of it. But the major area of discourse this morning is the fact that the Minister of Education, Tunji Alausa, have said that he's saying there is need for the cancellation of satellite campuses because they are not sustainable. We're going to do an assessment of the satellite campuses that we have in Nigeria and also dissect the things happening in the education sector. And I have a public affairs analyst here, also an educationist. He's a prof, and of course, he's going to add his voice to the conversation this beautiful morning. Professor Ibrahim Abubakar is right here. He's an in-house analyst, Global TV in-house analyst, a public affairs analyst, and also an educationist. It's good to have you join us this morning.
Good morning.
Well, we're looking at the education sector. But before we look at the education sector, can we talk about the statement coming from the Minister of Education saying there is need, okay, for the cancellation of satellite campuses? What's your assessment of that statement?
Well, I think it's not going through the right direction. I know him to be a specialist on nephrology, and being in the medical field, having studied in Nigeria and in America, he will have known better than any other person in how to contain educational system, building on the already templates. And a law and act established these satellite campuses to reduce rate of illiteracy and give people their right to education. The right to education is not a privilege. That is the mistake we make. A right to education is not a privilege. So when you start saying satellite campuses should be totally wiped out or curtailed, I don't know where his thinking are from. Though I don't essentially blame him for such comments because of the way our satellite campuses are, but he is, from a perspective, my own perspective or thinking of him as a person, is he will have been able to put up rules that will guide these satellite campuses. I for one, I am not blaming him because he's not an administrator, he's not an academic administrator, he's not from the academic environment. He has been in the centers of kidney and hypertension care centers and the rest, and he's a research person, but he's not purely an academician. So I will not put him in the round table thinking that he will have done it well. But before now, we have administrators and managers of education in the ministry. There is no way we will say we don't have administrators and managers of education in the ministries. So if we have this, they will have properly advised him that the route he's following is not right for the country right now. Because education is not just a privilege, but a right.
Okay, education is not just a privilege, but it is a right.
Yes.
Now, he's actually saying this from a point of view. He said it is not sustainable. As a Minister of Education, he may have carried out some assessment, and he discovered that it is not sustainable and it is not efficient. Can you argue that?
Yeah, when he says it's not sustainable, what makes it not sustainable? These are the key areas. What area of it that is not sustainable that he has been able to address? Because when you say a business is not sustainable, you must look at the business from every angle of it. We have about 5 templates that makes a business not sustainable. We have 5 templates in which a system is not sustainable. So has he followed these templates adequately to make sure that and tell the people that this is not sustainable? If he has not done that, it means that he's just saying it from his varice. When did he resume as the Minister of Education? I think it should be between October, November last year. So at what point has he studied the satellite campus, look at their failures, look at their inadequacies, look at their inefficiencies, and come up with the policy of let's shut down the satellite campuses? I don't think he has done that. The educational sector in Nigeria is so wide that we have not been able to do the needful. Up to today, we have not even classified our institutions. So the institutions are just on parallel line. We need to do the needful first before you start catching the dark end of the day. We have not done the needful and we are catching the dark end of the day. That is the problem we have.
All right. There is this belief. Some people believe that there is a difference. We all know that there is a difference between the campus, the real campus itself, and satellite campuses. More attention, according to what some Nigerians are saying, is more, all right, as the main campus. But the satellite campuses, you hardly have serious monitoring, and people at the satellite campuses are not as serious as the people at the main campuses. And for that reason, some persons don't take their studies seriously, maybe because there is no monitoring, maybe because they have lecturers come do their things and just go. Nobody's on ground to supervise or something, and as a result of that, some people come out of satellite campuses, not all, some, and they are not well equipped to represent whatever it is they claim to have studied in school. Are you of the same school of thought, or you differ opinion?
I have a different opinion to that, because one, it is what you put in that you get. What did you impart? As a ministry, we have the evaluation and monitoring department. These are the people that are supposed to monitor the institutions. What is the real value job of National University Commission? What is the value job of the Board of Technical Education? What is the value job of all these sectors which are under the ministry? They are supposed to regulate, supposed to monitor, and supposed to evaluate. So when these issues are not put into their agenda, then you don't blame the satellite campuses. You cannot come back, your child cannot come back from school and is not monitored at home and put the blame on the teacher or the lecturer. So it is when there is no supervisory system or monitoring system that you see these kind of things to happen. When we were in, I remember my elementary days here in Nigeria, when the chief inspectors of education or the inspectors of education are coming to the school. You see all the teachers, the headmaster, everybody running around to make sure everything goes on well. And sometimes they come unannounced to see the inadequacies. These are the 70s and the type of educations we have from the 60s to the 70s. But today, you find out that nobody supervises anybody. Nobody cares, and the ministry is not doing their own job as administrators and managers. The other sectors under them are not doing the same job, and you are blaming it on the campuses. That is not what we need for now. What we need is, what do we do to standardize these institutions? When the standards are there, then nobody will challenge it.
Otherwise, you're trying to say the problem itself is not the...
It's an internal problem.
It's an internal problem. What internal problem are you talking about?
Because
let's do an assessment of the education sector.
Look at it. The universities are being run like private institutions. All the educational sectors are lacking because they are being run like a business, one-man business. So you just see the ministry relaxing as if they don't have supervisory right over the institutions. Even the private schools are supposed to be monitored. The private schools are supposed to be evaluated. People are supposed to be assigned as inspectors, going to these institutions, bringing up reports every day on what is happening around the campuses. Both primary institutions and the rest. And that is why we have intrusional bodies in our institutions today. If the institutions are invaded by court, I even learned that courts are now in secondary and primary schools. So why is it invaded? It's because of the attitude of the institution which we call the Ministry of Education. If they put their feet on the ground and go into modern system of education, modern system of learning, you find out that all these things will not happen. It's just like what happens in JAMB. And let's be very sincere to us. There are a lot of people in the villages who has never seen a laptop or a computer, and you are giving them computer-based test. How did you want them to go by it? So these are the things that we need to standardize, equip our schools, know that every adequate loopholes are filled before we start blaming the campuses or the institutions that establish these campuses.
So what you're trying to say in essence now, let me take you back to the issue of JAMB, because that issue, that situation has been everywhere, and up to now some persons are still trying to recover from the situation. Now, talking about the issue of JAM, because we're looking at the education sector, even though the director has come to apologize to say the error came from JAM. You're talking about the fact that some persons have not seen the computers before, especially students in the village. And these students will also have to sit for the same exam, and it is a CBT exam, that is computer-based test examination. Don't you think, what do you think the federal government should do, all right, to incorporate people like that? Because you can't say, well, because these ones don't know how to operate the computers, it's an excuse for them. They should be given a different exam apart from the UTME, the JAMB that they write. So what do you think? How do we balance this equation? Because they are supposed to be taught, take through the process before the exams.
That is why I said we need to standardize our institutions. That's the first priority. Even allows where it's coming from in the US. There was a time the US degree was not acceptable anywhere. They have to go and understudy another country's system on how to run the educational system. And that is what brought about Harvard. Today, Harvard is one of the best institutions in the world. And that increased the momentum on how America has to go about standardizing their educational system. Yeah, we feel relaxed. If somebody tell you that from 1972 to 1987, five Nigerian universities were among the best 25 universities in the world, and today we are not among 1,600. It is very, 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 very disheartening. But we are taking these things lightly because it may likely not affect some of us. Our children don't school here, so what is my business? What happens to other people? I think that is what is wrong. So coming after because your children are in America and the other people's children are here, closing the satellite campuses, doing this, instead of thinking deeply on what to do and what could be the implementation of these things. There are factors you have to look at. Some of them did not know what is called educational methodology. So because they don't know and because they refuse to know, this is the imbalance we are receiving today. Because it's only what I have that I can impart on anybody. What I don't have, I cannot impart. So when there is a rowdy sessions in the hall, what happened? What is the United Nations policy on education? How many people are supposed to be in my class? Ideally, as a lecturer, as a teacher, how many people do a lecturer takes sometimes in Nigeria? 200, 250, 500 in some cases, because we don't have the policy framework and regulation, and when we have them, we don't implement them.
All right. Part of some of these issues, you know, we're talking about the responsibility of the government. You just talked about how the schools is being run for commercial purpose when you get started. Now, let's look at the area of funding, and because there is no way you can talk about, because you said the education for Nigerians, it is their right, not a privilege, and the government is supposed to make that right work. Now, there is one area that the government is doing well, and that is the funding of tertiary institutions in Nigeria, which is done through the Tertiary Education Trust Fund. In fact, this statement was made by the Minister of Education at the TED Fund stakeholders one-day meeting that they had. And he also talked about the fact that the funding may not go to schools, that don't have students up to 2,000. Because there are some polytechnics, there are some schools that don't have students, okay, up to what other schools have. Then when it comes to funding, these ones are being funded and they want to share part of it. And you know, when this funding is being released to a particular school, you cannot be funding the main campus and still be funding the satellite when you discover that the numbers are few. So what do you think to be done? And the issue of sending lecturers abroad to study, TED Fund has been doing that for research and all of that. I know you are aware. That's the area I'm trying to bring out where the government is playing its role. Don't you think this role and this funding should be enough for whatever that needs to be done at the main campus to be done, instead of spreading into satellite campuses that will not get funding? That could lead to inefficiency. Don't you think so?
Let me come in this way. The funds from TED funds are enough for every institution in Nigeria if well channeled and managed. But when you channel funds to the wrong areas, you don't expect results. The corruption index in TED fund is enormous. I don't have any reason, I don't have anybody coming to tell me TED fund has been upright. No. The corruption index in TED fund is enormous. To me, they are not channeling the funds to areas of priorities. And if they have channeled those funds to areas of priorities, then we will not be where we are today.
When you say
so, what is the impact of TED fund in most of the institutions? No impact.
But have you been to some institutions in Nigeria?
Very well.
And see the structures?
Very well.
Like you were talking about computers just now.
Yes, if you go to institutions where students are still lacking in equipment, in labs, in so many priority areas, most accredited courses are not well funded. The research funds goes to very few people, if you don't know. So what you see in TED fund is that most of the funds are not channeled to priority areas.
So who do the channeling?
TED fund executives.
You know how, Bert, this funding is for school, not for individual. And what TED fund do is, are you saying the real schools are not targeted? Because I've actually done some research. The reason why I'm saying this is because I've done some research. I've spoken to some vice chancellors and of course project officers in some schools. And this money, and people that were even trained, sent abroad to study and all of that, and they all spoke well. And we saw some structures, okay? This disbursement go to the school. It's left, don't you think it's left for the management of the school to do the channeling to areas?
If I disburse money to you for a reason, do I have the monitoring mechanisms to supervise what you are supposed to use that money for? If that is my responsibility, what happens? And how many executive secretaries have we gotten in TED fund? And how many of them came in as not having 10 million in their account and left as billionaires?
I don't have the
so these are the things we are talking of. When the money is not well channeled, when we are talking of monitoring and evaluation, there is no monitoring on any of these sectors.
there is no record of accountability. Tedford has not told us that this year we have so amount of money and this is the way we spent this money.
But sure, there should be internal auditors.
Internal auditors.
Tedford?
You see, let me tell you one thing that makes Nigeria way to some tricks in the past. If I have 1 billion, for example, and it is for a project, and I'm giving account of every penny spent on that project and what we have realized, everybody would applaud me. But when it becomes internal auditors and the rest, what we do here is we do garbage in, garbage out all the time. That, oh, the cost of this is so amount of money, and nobody wants to query that. All they realize is that the teacup which I bought for 100 naira, I can come here and say this 1,000 naira, and everybody agree as far as they have seen the teacup. That is against the basic rules. If you are a member of the Royal Society of Engineers, if I bring that this structure will cost 100 million and another member of that body says no, it can be constructed with 75 million, they will ask technically how to achieve that based on the drawings and estimates. So what is the reason for estimate? Yeah, you just come up and said, I have awarded A, B, C, D to so amount. Nobody, there is no transparency. And in a place where there is no transparency, there is no accountability. It is as easy as that. So unless these bodies becomes transparent to the public, it's our funds, it's our money, it's not their money. So you cannot manage my money as if it is yours. You must tell me in details what you are using these monies for.
Okay, let's get back to...
They are not personal funds. They are not personal finance.
Sure, they are not. But then, I think I think there are people who follow up with the disbursement. And that's why Tech Fund go as far as supervising to see the structures put in place. I think in a way, we've done research and we discovered that there are some persons who have actually spoken and we saw structures and all of that.
It's not about speaking because I'm a beneficiary. Those who you spoke with are actually beneficiaries. So when you are a beneficiary, you have every right to speak whatever you want to say.
All right, let's get back to the education sector in Nigeria. How long do you think the educational sector, and what are the key things you feel can be done in the educational sector to make us compete? Well, we are not taking away the fact that we have some very brilliant Nigerians who are doing very well. Even the JAM that was written recently, we had Nigerians, all right, that did very well, while others had issues and all of that. Apart from the fact that some persons are doing well, though not private, even the public institutions, even the private are doing better because of the money that is being invested there. And like you talk about commercialization, what do you think the government, what are the key areas you feel the government should touch so that in the next 5 to 6 to 10 years, the Nigerian educational system will be better than what it is right now?
We have to map out a roadmap that will build standards, that will build qualitative education. If we don't go through the roadmap to build standard and qualitative education, we also have to build a curriculum that would drive the nation to a greater height. What do we want? Do we want to face the arts and make the nation a body of arts that will generate for us funds? Are we going into technology and engineering? Are we going into science? And what is our major? What is our priority for now? If in an index where you are not having priorities, then there must be a setback. You cannot build up a nation that has no direction, and you don't build academicians that has no direction. We don't have a methodology. We don't have academic warfare. We don't classify our educational system. So, and you should know, categories are not inherited even in the minds of a child. So when you go through all these systems, you find out that we are lacking directions. We are principally missing track in our system. So we have to generate a system that has a policy framework, a template that is workable, a narrative that has to change the index, that it is not just about talking but added advantage by actions.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for joining us today on the Global Morning. Well, we've spoken extensively, but the education system, like Prof said, is the right of Nigerians to have quality education. But then, what do we have in the real sense of it? And that question is left to you and every individual, including Prof and I, and you out there have roles to play as parents, as students, everyone, every Nigerian have roles to play for us to have a smooth educational system. Many thanks for joining us once again, Prof.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the viewers.
All right, this is going to be the size of the second discussion. Let's go to a quick break. After this break, we will return and we will bring Global Morning to a close for today. Stay with us.